Hey you guys, this is Zane here, back at it again with another episode of watching Monster House every single day this month with my friends because I want them to, and also because I promised that I would do it yet again if we were in quarantine for another month. And yes, on day 2 we are still in quarantine, but that's okay. We'll make it through it. We'll come out on the other side as stronger people, and it'll be great. We're good. But I have yet to get to the and friends part. I did have an episode fully recorded with my friend Cameron, but it wasn't until the right after I finished recording, because the audio was coming through totally fine, but going back on the recording before I wanted to upload it, the audio was really quiet on his end, and since my audio tracks were on the same as his, I didn't have any way that I could possibly bump him up without bumping everything else up. So, I've now learned. So I'm going to get him to come back on and we'll discuss everything again. So there's a couple things that I won't talk over this time, but I will discuss more with him, such as like animation type things, since he is more focused in animation and everything. So he can go into a way better discussion about all those types of things than I am able to. So it's really cool to hear, and I'm already excited to talk about all of it again. I just need to make sure I don't go over all the exact same points, but I'll be good. And then also, yeah, if you have any interest, for whoever's watching this, I don't know if I know you or not, but if you have any interest in hopping on here and talking about Monster House with me for roughly half an hour on some random day, then like shoot me a message on Twitter or some place, wherever you can find me, and send me a message, I suppose. But I mean, I'd be happy to have you on whether or not you like the show, or if you absolutely hate it and want to talk about every single little thing you despise about it. It'd be interesting to hear. And I mean, I'm not going to try and argue with you or anything, but like, hey, everyone likes or dislikes something, and like can't sit in like an echo chamber and just have people talk about just everything they like. Although I could talk about everything that I like for a while, so that's different. But this is my 4th time trying to record this, because the first time I recorded with Cameron, the audio was wrong. The second time was totally good. All great. I even had an intro edited in, and it was awesome. And then I was going to upload it, and VLC completely corrupted the entire file. So I couldn't even upload the audio to Spotify, at least earlier, because I had nothing to go off of, which really sucked. And then I just got 20 minutes into my previous recording, and I realized that it wasn't actually recording because I hit the button, but I guess I didn't. So, 4th time's the charm. This one will be easy, and you know what? I'm so prepared at this point in practice that I can't imagine it being awful. We're already a strong almost 4 minutes in, and we're cruising. So, this time of me watching the video, or not the movie, I was taking notes this time, which, when saying it out loud, sounds really lame. Like taking notes on watching a movie, especially if it's not something I'm like getting marked on. But I mean, you got to pay attention to a lot of the little things. And if I'm gonna be doing this for like 30 days, I'm gonna have to find stuff to talk about every time. Maybe one of these days I'll give a full-on, just in-depth review about every single little thing I like about the movie, and not just give like a synopsis of what's happening. That could certainly be an interesting way of doing it. Maybe. I don't know. I'm mostly winging this, and that's okay. For all the presentations I've done in school, I think winging it is a little bit more my forte in comparison to writing a script. But I do got notes to go off of still. So, going off of some of the notes I took, I mostly wrote down some really small minor things that I was able to notice when watching the movie this time. So one of the small things that I noticed was when they're going to the sign for the construction that's happening, it says, "We drained the lake." And they're going to be doing a bunch of building there. I can't remember exactly what. And if memory serves me properly, I think that is something to do with like an American election or something related to American politics, where there was a slogan for draining the swamp. And I believe it had something to do where people wanted to do construction where a swamp area was, but people were also realizing that swamps are really good. Well, not inherently really good for the environment, but they're super important to the ecosystem. And they house like an insane amount of like plant variety and animal variety as well. So there would not be a good idea to do that. But also, that's usually not what a lot of people keep in mind when they're doing construction. And it could even be more so of a joke that they're doing some massive urbanization in a really small town environmental area. And I know for a fact, if you're living in a really tight-knit community, and all of a sudden this like maybe big entrepreneur type guy is coming in and is like, "All right, we're gonna build like a really big mall," and people would be like, "What? No." He's like, got the deed." I'm like, what? So maybe it's more so poking fun at that. Another little thing that I noticed was Z's car, or Elizabeth's car, looks almost identical to that of Michael Cera's from Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, which is also a really nice little movie. If you like Michael Cera, he plays, of course, like the awkward teenager type dude who makes little mixtapes, but that's kind of off it. His car looks like it looks like a taxi if you put it into a garbage compactor, except stopped it like halfway. It's like nice and squashed. Looks a little bit like the Initial D car, kind of, but yellow. And then another little one, it's a bunch of little things. So I was trying to pinpoint exactly when this movie is supposed to be taking place, because there's a lot of little things that make me think that it's supposed to be like modern times, so like the 2006 when the movie came out. But there's other things that make me think that it's like maybe a lot, well, not a lot, but like sooner than that. So when DJ's calling Chowder late at night, and he mentions where his mom is out with her personal trainer, I believe. Chowder's playing on an Atari, and like if it's 2005, who has an Atari? Let alone some like 12-year-old kid is actually spending his night playing an Atari, when I would most likely assume that he'd have something more exciting and interesting to play with. But then again, going off of the last episode, where Chowder most likely doesn't get a lot of attention from his parents and stuff, maybe it's just something that they had from when they were kids, and they just kind of dug it up from out of the basement, and he just has something to occupy himself with during the night. And also, another thing, like when I was a kid, I had this like plug and play controller thing that was, I believe, called the Intellivision, and I had like maybe like 40 or so games built into it that are really, really old. And like there was one called like B-52 Bomber, I think. There was a one that was sort of like Feeding Frenzy, where you play as a fish and you're slowly eating things slightly bigger than you, so you can eventually become big and eat like a shark or something. And then there was another one that you were like a penguin and you had to skate on the ice and make like a full circle or square around something to make it fall down into the water. And they're all like high score based, so you could easily get like, oh, they weren't even like quarter based, so they were just time wasters. So it's most likely in that situation with Chowder Or it could even be one like where a grandparent or something buys something for cheap at a garage sale and gives it to you for entertainment. Like I know my one of my grandparents got a Nintendo 64 at a garage sale with like a bunch of games and gave it to me. So that's how I was able to play Ocarina of Time and a couple other games like that when I was younger. So that could also be the case. And if maybe the movie took place in like 2000, the PS1 had pretty much like just come out. So like not a whole lot of, it wouldn't have been all that far back to have an Atari. And also all the cool kids had cool systems. And I think one of the last little things I noticed was when DJ is like the first time he goes to bed, and the house shadow is slowly like creeping up over him into his room. You can he wakes up from the phone call and looks over and sees that the phone the time is 11:14, and when I looked it up, it's apparently known as the triple hour, and has something to do with like guardian angels and being watched over. So maybe like the phone call was like sort of a sign of that, even if the phone was calling from the house, or maybe it was like someone else and they hung up, but it was just the house. But I thought that was like oddly specific, and maybe in some other horror movie they used 11:14 as some sort of timing for it. Like maybe in The Exorcist. I know in Paranormal Activity, the ghost stuff started happening around like 3 or so in the morning, which is like 3 minutes from now. So hopefully nothing spooky happens, like the recording fails. But yeah, maybe I feel like it might be a reference to that or something. Or with like everything else I'm talking about, I'm looking way too far into like a kid's movie. But that's okay. And then another thing, when Z takes off her sweater and she's wearing a Skull and Bones t-shirt, it's probably a safe assumption to assume that Bones is someone that was in the band that she was listening to. And when she puts the cassette into her, or the, what do you call it? It wasn't inherently like the audio player in the house, I guess that's what it is. When she put it into there, you could see on the label that it said Skull and Bones, but it was like using the exact same font and writing that was on her shirt. So Z might be the perfect forger, and might not even be, Elizabeth might not actually be her real name even. But that's just a stupid theory I came up with right now. So we'll disregard that. Oh, and then even the little arcade games that are at the pizza place where Skolinski works when they go to visit all have unique names, and even the side of the box for this movie, just like at the very top on the spine, has the random skull sorcerer dude that says "Thou art dead," like right as that scene's ending, which is weird and specific. And then even at the bottom of the spine they have the dog. For whatever reason, I guess they just wanted to take up a little bit of space with those. But it's probably like safe to assume that the game that Skolinski's playing is sort of a mix between Golden Axe, some sort of Castlevania game, and Ghosts and Goblins, because they're all arcade-y style games. Ghosts and Goblins and Castlevania are pretty like medieval fantasy themed, and I mean he's playing an arcade game in a pizza place, so it's probably a game that's really, really difficult and is trying to eat up your quarters. So it's probably an amalgamation of those, and it even lends itself a little bit better to Castlevania and stuff for the naming that Skolinski manages to pull out of his ass for Domus Mactipolis, which, even though it was cut, you could almost think that he came up with that on the spot just to try and get the kids to leave him alone. Because if you're some, 25-year-old guy working at a pizza place where no one's coming in and you can sit all day and play the arcade games, the last thing I'd want to do is to like have some little kids come in and bother me about a possessed house that's trying to eat them. So I'd just give them something fake like that to run off with to let their imaginations go wild. On the other hand, I'm starting to grow the perfect Skalinski stash, and I hate it, but like I gotta do it, because by the end of this, if I don't come out looking like Julian Solomita, I'm gonna be real disappointed. The likelihood of it happening are super, super low, but like, I mean, maybe it'll happen, and that'd be really cool. Sorry, I'm a little running out of water here. I'll be good though. So, I think that was roughly about it for like a lot of the little things that I noticed this time around. I mean, of course, there's gonna be a lot more that'll pick up as I keep watching, but for the time being, those are the ones that I had written down, which were of good talking points, I think. And even like you could tie in the cassette tape to like what time period it is, but then again, cassettes are sort of making a comeback like vinyl records are. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of cassettes because they're cassettes? They're kind of neat though. I know my dad has a bunch of them downstairs in the basement, but I mean, they are also a lot cheaper. You can probably get one for cheaper than a CD. CDs are dumb. Unless you like to collect them, then they're not stupid. Oh, and even the house, when I was thinking about it last night since last episode, it made me realize that this, like, the house totally reminded me of one of the old neighbors that we used to have. And at the time, the house it wasn't inherently like run down, but you could tell the person or people, I don't know if there's more than one, living there didn't really care too much, and their pool was really, really gross, and it was all like algae and green, and during the summer you'd get crazy bad mosquitoes in the cul-de-sac because, I mean, mosquitoes love stagnant water, so they just grow up and get big there and then terrorize us kids. And she was also like basically never cracker, and she'd always get like super mad at the kids in the cul-de-sac, and she'd come ripping in her car and down the driveway, and she one time backed into the basketball hoop at the end of the cul-de-sac, and I don't think she even bothered to like try and fix it or anything like that. So she basically was a never-cracker, just without the redeemable qualities of being Steve Buscemi and having a backstory. Or, you know what, I can't say that, because maybe she actually was nice and no one really talked to her, but she was just never nice to any of the kids. So my experiences with her made me not like her very much. But I never really had much for direct contact with her. But part of that like sort of feeds into the idea of maybe you have like a witch or something living close by, and you can play imagination with your friends and pretend that you're like fighting monsters or something like that. Like, it's kind of part of being a kid, is coming up with weird tall tales that you can tell with your friends. So I guess moving on from that, there's no real good way of transitioning between some topics in this. There's a lot that I have to say for animation-wise and stuff, but I need to save those for another time. And I will remember to actually make a rating for this at the end of this episode. And within the next couple episodes, I'd also like to have... I do have an intro actually made up for this, but I don't want to risk doing that again tonight and having the stuff get corrupted, because I think I'd lose it. So I'm gonna just double up on copies of stuff just to make sure, and then I should be safe. So with reviews on this movie, it has pretty okay reviews, but I want to bring it into a little bit of a meme that's been going around called is it better than Imagine Party Babies? So there's, for those on Spotify, I have a little image that I kind of cropped up. That'll when this is posted on YouTube, there'll be you'll be able to see the whole thing yourself. But there's this thing on the internet. There's a Tumblr called "Is It Better Than Imagine Party Babies?" And they take the review of Imagine Party Babies from IGN, which gave the game a 7.5, which is insane because the game is terrible. Like, it's super, super bad. So it's a really fun thing to poke fun at and find out if things are better than Imagine Party Babies or not. For example, I believe the rating for Death Stranding was a 6.8, making it therefore not as good as Imagine Party Babies. And it sucks to suck. So maybe Party Babies was the first Strand type game, and it just should have had some more novel material out of it. So, is Monster House better than Imagine Party Babies? The answer is apparently no, except for Rotten Tomatoes giving it a 75%. So it's just as good as Imagine Party Babies. But all of the reviews seem to imply that it is not quite as good. So Common Sense Media gave the movie a 2.8 out of 5, which is kind of odd, but I guess moving that up, that's a 5.6 out of 10. IMDb gave it a 6.6 out of 10. And for 53 ratings on Letterboxd, it has a total of 3.2, which there's only a couple 5-star and 4-star reviews. That's okay. The movie, it's solid enough. I would go over some of the like Letterboxd reviews that people have done, but that kind of seems like a cop-out for content to pad the time, because it's not my content. Like, I didn't come up with these reviews, and I don't want to be making fun of people for having an opinion on a movie, but some of them are really funny. Like, you can get a 1-star review that's like, I watched this with my ex-wife, and that she is my ex-wife now. 1 star, or something like that. Those are always really funny to read. So I might look for a couple of ones that are like super off topic and just so happen to be in the Monster House category. And I mean, I'm also surprised there's only like 53. That's like surprisingly low. So maybe this is really just the biggest hidden gem. Another hidden gem from this movie is DJ's Fantastic Sweater. Like, it's banging. I would 100% kill to get a sweater like that. Like, it's nice. I mean, even like, the outfits are actually, when you really think about it, there's certainly something. You got someone in like a private school outfit, a kid in a turtleneck sweater, a kid wearing a shirt that's too small for him and also a cape. You've got 2 police officers. You've got like old man, and I believe his suspenders are kind of not working properly. You've got the like little girl, and then you even got like the Halloween costume that they put on the vacuum cleaner. Like, fashion statements are all over the place, and I'm here for it 100%. Oh, I guess this is probably a good time to go back there to the image I was using, so people can stop looking at the Imagine Party Babies. But when you quickly going back to Imagine Party Babies, there's a surprising amount of things that are not as good as Imagine Party Babies. And if you look close enough, you can find even the best things are not as good as Imagine Party Babies to someone. That's you can quote me on that. Oh, sort of going with all the different weird or interesting looks that people have, there's a surprising amount of really, really like the casting is like super small in general. Like most movies will have like extra 1 and 2 voiced by this person, or so on and so forth. But this movie has like 15 people in total, maybe at most. Even like the dog in the movie is, I believe it's credited as like Herman the dog, played by himself or something like that. So they did like a really good job, and for the people that they got picked, I couldn't imagine it being any better. Like, I suppose this is the time before like child acting sort of like really took off. Like nowadays you can see kid actors and be like really, really impressed with how they are. But I mean, there's not a whole lot really to be said for a lot of these people. Also, super surprising thing. So all the characters are actually, for the most part, modeled off of what the people look like in real life. That freaked me out when I actually realized it. I mean, you can sort of tell, but like putting real people's faces like by what they look like as a 3D model is mildly terrifying, because the technology wasn't totally there yet, and I don't think they wanted to have a repeat of the Polar Express creepy look incident all over again. So that's something cool. And Chowder Boy, if you're out there somehow listening to this, I'll give you a high five if I ever meet you. I mean, that seems pretty promising, right? I guess I'm getting relatively close to having to wrap this up. I forgot to reset the instrumental playlist a little bit. So we've got Break the Targets going on right now, which is definitely more exciting than some of the other stuff that it's supposed to be. So if you were falling asleep before, now we're amping it up into overdrive. That's okay. I definitely need a little bit of a burst of energy. And I guess if I'm gonna have to I'm trying to even think about what my favorite character in the entire movie would have to be, but it's hard to say. Like, the house has such a cool design, and that would almost be like a winning character choice for me. But I feel like Nebercracker has a winning character, because he's just Steve Buscemi. He's wholesome and good. He's really down. What he's trying to get down with is just like protecting the kids in the neighborhood from his evil house, which is certainly a task, a really big one. Definitely another time I'm gonna have to go over the backstory for the house and Nebercracker, because I haven't even touched upon that in the slightest. And they do a really good job at giving these characters interesting talking points and stuff. So that'll have to be for another time for sure. And even there's I believe there's 2 after credit scenes for this as well. I mean, you get to see the dog lives, and you get to see that Z ends up with Skalinski. I mean, wait, do you think maybe Skalinski? No, there's no way, because it doesn't seem like Bones knows who Skalinski is. Because I was gonna say that would have been whack if they were actually band partners. Ooh, that would be cool. But I'm now going off on tangents all over again. So I think it's probably a good time to wrap up this episode. It's coming out so late anyways, but there will be one tomorrow. And I'll be hopefully more organized. I felt like this turned out significantly better than the first episode, which is nice. So if you have any feedback, feel free, or criticism, please give it to me, because I'm gonna be doing this for another 28 days, so I'd like to do as best as I can. I'll end this off with my final review of Monster House for the day. So after watching Monster House for the second time, I will rate this movie 10 monsters out of 10 houses. It was good, just as good as when I watched it yesterday, if not maybe a little bit better. And I've got 20 seconds left on the clock. I ain't playing basketball, but I think that's probably a good time to end it. So thank you so much for listening. I'll be right back here tomorrow, hopefully significantly earlier than this time, and I hope to see you guys there. See ya.